We only had a few days, so Deb and I flew up to Shetland from Glasgow. It takes about an hour and a half. It was raining, of course, when we got there, but it cleared up by the time we were in Lerwick. We had a great guest house, and it was right above the SNP by-election campaign office. Lerwick is a fairly typical Scottish East Coast town. Organised around the harbour, there's a main street with shops and restaurants and bars. This one is apparently famous from the Shetland TV series, and of course the most northerly branch of Boots. The following day we hired a car and drove back south to Sombra. The landscape is a bit like the Western Isles. It's quite well populated, but there's also lots of abandoned buildings. You see lots of sheep and a few Shetland ponies, but of course seabirds are everywhere. So here we are at Sombra, which is the southernmost point of Shetland.
Lovely.
And we're here at the lighthouse. In fact, we're in the lighthouse car park. And oh, is that bonny behind us? You can hear the helicopters coming out of Sombra Airport. You can probably hear the wind. Lots of seabirds here. We came looking for puffins. Did they find any?
No puffins.
No puffins. Puffin-free zone here, but very nice anyways.
Today, you're going to take a journey through 4,000 years of human history.
And here we are in Jarlshof, which is a Bronze Age settlement. The best thing about Jarlshof is you can climb right inside the site itself. So this is inside one of the buildings here at Jarlshof. Very interesting little round structure. Coming through a long corridor.
It's very interesting.
Very interesting.
If you're into your history and buildings and stuff and seeing how people used to live.
The beach has got two sides in it, so there's one side of the beach with the water coming in there, and then there's the other side there. We then drove up to the northern part of the mainland, where the landscape is much wilder and mostly kind of peat moors, and up to Isheness and its really spectacular cliffs. The following day we drove up to Unst, which is the most northerly inhabited island of Shetland. You have to take two ferries and drive across the island of Yell to get there. Unst itself has a kind of end-of-the-world feel about it, but it's quite well populated. There is some Viking stuff you can see, but we were there to walk up Hermanus to see the last or first of the British Isles, Muckle Flugga. Northern point of Unst. And it's blowing a gale and the weather's coming in, so we're going to head along to the end, but I think it might start raining.
It's really cold and the sheep are bang as if to say there's no place for humans up here.
Okay. Let's head back to the car then. Of course we had to get those ferries back to return to the mainland. On the way back we had a look at the famous but rather incongruous Sullom Voe oil terminal. Finally we treated ourselves to a fish supper and plate of mussels at Frankie's Fish and Chips at Bray, the most northerly chipper in Scotland. For our final morning in Shetland we took a wee boat from Lerwick out to the island of Noss to see the gannets and the seals. We were mostly lucky with the weather, but the last afternoon in Lerwick was pretty wet. So we made our way to the ferry. That's the ferry behind us. We're getting the overnight ferry back to Aberdeen. So we're just about to go in and back. It's been a bit of a wet day, so we're going to get onto the boat and get into our cabin. But what a fantastic place Shetland is.